Hello and welcome back to another PvP video. This time it's again the rogue, but it's the Heartseeker. So I have two versions of the Heartseeker. The first one is the Andariel version because it was fans favorite from season 4 and 5, and now it's not bad, but it's not as good as in season 4 or season 5. That's for sure, especially compared to season 4, and that's mainly because of the Andariel's nerf. But the Victimize, although it was nerfed in the patch notes before the season started, it's actually not that bad. If you see, my current damage with the explosion is 356k, which, given the stat squish, is not bad at all. Don't expect to push pit with this though. It's dog shit for the pit. But I was surprised that it was actually able to kill the mobs, in the Fields of Hatred or in the Helltide. So that's something. Like in World Tier 4 for such a build, it's kind of something, especially given the fact that it's built for the poison, purely on Andariel. This is 100% Andariel build because if you take a look at the glyphs, they are all scaling the poison damage and damage to poisoned enemy. So there's no physical damage or the ranger glyph, for example, that will scale specifically the explosion. Right? We take the vulnerable damage as much as we can, but it's not focused specifically on the Victimize. It's mostly focused on the Andariel. So you should keep that in mind. That as Andariel is not as good as in season 4 and 5. Don't expect to do wonders with this build. But for PvP is good, and I was also surprised for that it's actually not that bad for PvP. But it's not as good as the rapid fire, that's for sure. There are spirit boars that can kill you, and it's way more difficult to kill them with this Heartseeker than with the rapid fire. And the reason is that they have barrier. And they are almost, you cannot damage them. They are like not invulnerable, but it feels like they are invulnerable, right? Because they have just permanent barrier. And even if you manage to poison them, you will have to constantly try to continue damage them and remove their barrier, because as long as they spam the barrier, then they'll just, mitigate the poison. But anyway, as you can see, the damage is nothing crazy, but it's not bad. It's doing like maybe on average 3 millions, something like that. Maybe 2 millions. Yeah, I would say more like 2 millions. And as you can see, the poison is like 1.5 million. But that's on the dummy, you don't expect to do this poison damage on players. This is not because in PvP you have inherit 92% damage reduction, so you're not gonna do like 1.5 million on players. Anyway, let's just explain the build, and again, my advice is play this build only if you just don't like the other builds, or really like the Heartseeker and you enjoy the Heartseeker, this is your favorite build or something like that. Only then play Heartseeker, because it's not as good as other builds. So for example, the rapid fire is way better. I mean, it's stronger, right? So for this build you need Andariel, because obviously this is the Andariel version. Then what you want on the Andariel again is life on hit to be great graphics, or you can play also the attack speed to be greater affix, although really whatever greater affix you have, as long as it's not maximum poison resistance, anything is fine, because you will have maxed out your attack speed anyway. Like if you have this aspect, especially from ancestral version maxed, then you will be maxing out your attack speed anyway. So you don't really care what's greater affix. And you know, you have quite high lucky hit chance here. So I have 66%, but if I drink the elixir of advantage, it becomes 74%. And you will be healing from the Doombringer way more than from the Andariel. So even if you don't have greater affix on life on hit, it's completely fine. Whatever greater affix you have on Andariel, it's fine, as long as it's not maximum poison resistance, because that's the most useless one when you have Tyrio's Might, or you know, Rakanot's the Rakanot's boots, or the Yen's blessing. So for the armor you want Tyrio Mites ideally, because again it's a dodge based build, and if you have Tyrio's Might, again I'm repeating this for I don't know which time, but just briefly, on the Tyrio's Might you can roll damage reduction and max out your resistances, and then on the boots you can roll greater affix dodge chance, dexterity and movement speed. Instead of using boots that to max out your resistances, then don't give you damage reduction and dodge chance, you get damage reduction and dodge chance by using Tyrio's Might. That's it. For the gloves you want dexterity, attack speed and lucky hit chance. Ideally the dexterity should be greater affix. If you don't have the dexterity greater affix, then the next ideal should be lucky hit chance. Then you want to temper some crowd control effect, either on the boots or on the gloves, or on the pants for that matter. On one of these pieces you should temper chance to slow, only once temper chance to slow, because chance to slow can roll very high. So just temper it once and you have very consistent, you know, application of this crowd control effect. On every piece just temper different crowd control effect. I think that they removed, actually I checked this and I couldn't find a recipe for days, so I think they removed the days crowd control effect from the game, so you cannot temper days anymore, but you can use this aspect, the concussive strike, on your boots, which gives you 20% chance to daze for 2 seconds, and then you deal additional damage to dazed enemies. So you can have 4 different crowd control effects. No, 5 different, because on the gloves you should use the cold clip aspect, which gives you freeze. So you should temper stun, immobilize, slow, or something else. So slow for sure somewhere on your gear. And then on the pants and the, for example, the gloves, you should temper something else, whatever it is, but not freeze, because you will have freeze from the cold clip. Temper chance to stun and chance to immobilize, something like that. So you will have 5. So you have daze, slow, for example here immobilize, stun, and freeze. So that's 5 different crowd control effects. And why do we need that many? Because on the weapon or the ring, it doesn't matter, you can temper, you can put the creeping death aspect, which gives you the ability to deal additional multiplicative damage, like in this case it's 19%, but for example it can go to 20 or I think 30% if it's an ancestral version. Damage over time to enemies for each different crowd control effect that they are afflicted by. So if you manage to afflict like 4 or 5, you know, they will be taking quite substantial amount of poison damage. Then on the pants you want dexterity, max life, dodge chance, not barrier regeneration, again some crowd control effect, and temper dodge chance. So the dodge chance ideally should be greater affix. If it cannot be dodge chance, then just get dexterity as greater affix. Here on the boots as well, I already explained, get either dexterity or dodge chance as greater affix. For the weapon, of course, you need bow, and better use the Moonrise aspect, which gives you basic attacks, basic skill damage. And the greater affix should be dexterity, ideally. Then you want Max Wife, vulnerable damage, chance for Heartseeker projectiles to cast twice, and either damage or vulnerable damage, whatever really, but ideally just take vulnerable damage, because vulnerable damage scales both the victimized explosion and your poison damage. So here you want as well dexterity, Max Wife, chance to heal if you want. It's optional, or you can take more vulnerable damage and temper vulnerable damage, and chance for Heartseeker projectile to cast twice. Just ignore that I temper damage. Vulnerable damage would be better. Then on the ring, you want dexterity as greater affix, Max Wife, lucky hit chance, temper vulnerable damage, and some mobility. The mobility cooldown reduction, like agility or dash cooldown reduction or shadow step cooldown, whatever, it's fine. So for example, here I have shadow step cooldown reduction. And then on the other ring, again, you want dexterity as greater affix, then vulnerable damage, temper vulnerable damage, and most importantly, either here instead of crit strike chance, because you don't need crit strike chance, you're playing for the victimized explosion and the poison damage, specifically poison cannot crit. So instead of crit strike chance, either here take this chance to make enemy vulnerable for 2 seconds, or take it here on the ring. On one of the rings or on the amulet, you should have this. So for the aspects on the rings, you want the rapid aspect and adaptability, and then on the amulet, you want the crowded sage aspect for additional dodge chance and survivability, and then again you want dexterity as greater affix, total armor to max out your armor, dodge chance, movement speed. In this case, it might be, I think, good idea. Let me check. So if I remove this, you don't really need movement speed, because if you hit the master working on the movement speed here, or you have good movement speed here, and you actually hit it here at least somewhere, like the tempered or the original affix movement speed. If you hit at least once somewhere movement speed on your boots or on Tyrael's Might, then you most probably won't need the movement speed on the amulet. So instead of movement speed, you can take more vulnerable damage. So you want dexterity, damage, and dexterity damage, total armor, dodge chance, and vulnerable damage. Then we're using Doombringer. If you don't have Doombringer, then use another sword like this, but don't temper chance for Heartseeker projectile to cast twice, because you honestly don't need it. So on the other sword, ideally you should temper chance to deal poison damage, like this, up to 40% chance to deal poison damage. So temper this on the other sword if you don't have Doombringer, because when you have it here and here, it's already 100% or more than 100%. As you can see, I have the minimum row here, and I haven't even hit it with Masterwork. And here I have mid-range, but let's say that it's the minimum range. It would be 68, then here it's 34. I would still be maxing it to 100% with just on one sword and the bow. So you don't need to waste the same affix on another sword. So that's for the gear. For the skill tree, of course you want to max Heartseeker, then enhance Heartseeker and primary Heartseeker. Then we take sturdy for close damage reduction. You take rugged and reactive defense. Then 1 point in shadow step, enhance shadow step and discipline shadow step, dash, enhance dash and discipline dash. Then you take you max out the weapon mastery. Then we go down, we take 3 points in agile, 3 points in evasive. We max out the mending obscurity, then 2 points in concealment, enhanced concealment and countering concealment. You want 2 points in dark shroud, then enhanced dark shroud and subverting dark shroud. Max out the exploit and malice as well. Then we take all these notes here, which is the deadly venom, alchemic advantage, which is quite nice because dealing poison damage increases your attack speed and lucky hit chance for 8 seconds, and you will be doing poison damage, and the more poison damage, right, the more lucky hit chance to apply even more poison damage and proc the victimized explosions. Then we max out the debilitating toxins, 3 points in frigid finesse because we have the code clip aspect, so we'll get the bonus from this passive as well. Then max out the alchemist fortune for more non-physical damage. Then 1 point in innervation, and you max out the haste, and then finally take victimize skill passive. Then for the Paragon is actually the same as my rapid fire build. It's literally the same. There are just few notes that I changed, and the reason why I changed them is because I don't still have 300 points, right? So I just removed some points, and basically what I did is I took here I took more vulnerable damage and I took the exploit weakness. So this is not something amazing. It's good because it gives you 25% multiplicative damage, but it's kind of dumb that they made it to stay only for 6 seconds, right? And then resets and you have to build the stacks again to have 25% multiplicative damage for just 6 seconds again. It doesn't make sense, like, but whatever. I just removed points from this one, the cunning stratagem, because we are not playing combo points. So you just remove the points from here and you take basically all these points here, and that's it. That's really the only difference. So everything will be in the link description again. So it's quite easy to transition to this build from the rapid fire one, but again the rapid fire one is significantly stronger. Okay, so for the non-Andariel version, we are using Heir of Perdition and Shard of Veratio, and everything else stays the same. Well, not everything else. We are using Starless Sky as well here. So just these three are the difference. Honestly, everything else is the same. Here I retempered vulnerable damage, which you should, by the way, be using for both Andariel and the non-Andariel version. So that's really the only difference. And here, instead of damage better use vulnerable damage as well, which I haven't done yet, but because I'm using it for the spirit ball as well. Anyway, so let's just go through the changes briefly. We're using Heir of Perdition. Why is this important? This helmet is everything that allows you to build Heartseeker in quite unique and specific way than how it was built previously in Season 4 and Season 5. And the reason for that is because it's the only helmet in the game that actually gives you crit chance. And it gives you a lot of crit chance. So if you can see, yes, of course it's fully masterwork, but it's non-GA and I haven't hit it with masterwork. And it still gives me 29% crit chance. Then Starless Skies, sure I hit it once on the masterwork, but this ring alone gives you like 1.5 times, I think at least 1.5 times more crit chance on the non-GA affix and non-hit through masterwork. It would still give you like 1.5 times more crit chance than a GA crit chance legendary ring would give you. Okay? And the other thing is that if you get lucky hit chances GA here on the Starless Sky and lucky hit a chance GA here, maybe you don't even have to hit them through the master working to reach like 100% lucky hit chance on your Heartseeker. So for example, as you can see, I have GA lucky hit chance here that I hit it twice. Then here is non-GA but I hit it twice. And I'm sitting at 96% lucky hit chance. So when I use Elixir of Advantage here, now I have 104% lucky hit chance, which means that every time I shoot, it will prop the victims. Okay, the target has to be vulnerable. But once it's vulnerable, you can see that every hit procs the explosion from the victimize. So, why is this important? Why the crit chance specifically is important? Now we know that it gives you a shit ton of lucky hit chance, and this one gives you a shit ton of lucky hit chance. So you can literally become easily 100% lucky hit chance and proc victimize every single time. So what's the difference, right? We are playing victimize anyway. Yes, but previously people, and including me, we were all scaling just the vulnerable damage for the explosion, right? However, now that this helmet and this ring both gives you lucky hit and crit chance, a lot of crit chance. The only thing that you need is either crit chance non-GA here and crit chance non-GA here, or just crit chance GA here on the amulet to reach like 90%. And by the way, you, here as you can see, I have 90% crit strike chance. And by the way, you don't need 90%, you need 85%. Okay, as long as you reach 85% crit chance, you're good to go. Why? Because so this is 90% now. But let's read what the Heartseeker skill itself does. It says, fire an arrow that seeks enemy, dealing damage and increasing your crit strike chance against them by 5% for 4 seconds up to 15%. So this means that if you have 85% crit chance, another 15% you will stack from the Heartseeker itself, and it would put you at 100%, which guarantees that every single hit will be critical damage. So if we take a look now, I'm at 90%, okay, and when I start shooting, now I am at 100%. I should be at 105, but probably you cannot go beyond 100 on the crit chance. So that's that. Now that we know that we have 100% crit chance and every hit will be critical, right? It makes sense to not just build for the victimize, but also for crit damage. And now the Heartseeker you will still take victimize, but you can have both good things, like the vulnerable damage and the crit damage in one build. The good thing about Starless Skies in combination with the Shard of Veratio, why you want Shard of Veratio, is that you can actually take advantage of the unique ability of the Starless Sky. Not just because it gives you crit chance, attack speed and lucky hit chance, which is all three are very important for the basic skill, not just for the basic, for every build basically, but especially for the Heartseeker. And then you can combine Shard of Veratio with Ring of Starless Skies, because what it does is that your basic skills deal 200% more damage, that's important, and additionally cost 25 primary resource. And that's good that they cost primary resource, because only when you are spending primary resource, then you get up to 50% multiplicative damage from the Starless Skies, and also reduces your resource cost. So initially it will cost 25, but the more you shoot, the less it will cost. And because we are playing, as you can see, we are playing Inner Sight both for Andariel version and this version, you will be, see, now I'm at I activated the Inner Sight gauge and my energy is not spending. So you will be, refilling your energy. You will never run out of energy. That's my point. See, I'm shooting, and there we go. I'm full again. So that's the most optimal way to scale this damage. This build does way more damage than the Andariel version. There is a downside though to the Andariel version compared this build has a downside compared to the Andariel version. I'll discuss it in a moment, but just let me tell you this. This helmet, just by putting this helmet on, gives you 60% multiplicative damage. No, unconditionally, right? You just put it and you have this damage. Then Starless Skies give you another 50% multiplicative, and if you get good roll of this, you can get up to 200% more damage. So that's the only changes, and that's you're not playing the poison based build anymore, because you don't proc poison from anywhere. So the downside of this build is that if you play against dodge based characters like dodge rogues or dodge spirit bones, it can be quite challenging to kill them. And the reason for that is because, let's say you play the Andariel version and you can proc poison nova, right? If they are dodge, if they stack dodge, then in order to proc the Andariel poison, you have to hit them directly, right? You have to be able to hit an enemy, regardless if it's a player or a mob, to have a chance to proc the poison nova. But if you cannot hit them because they stack dodge, then you won't be able to proc the poison. You just don't hit them at all. They don't take damage. They don't take. You cannot proc the victimized explosion. You cannot proc the Andariel poison. So what you do in this case is you bring them in packs of mobs. And if you do the PvP in World Tier 4, like in Torment 4, anything than Spirit Bones have don't have that easy time of clearing the mobs in the Fields of Hatred by one-shotting them. You are not gonna one-shot them if you are not playing Spirit Bone. And that means that most of the time there will be mobs around you or the player, because the Fields of Hatred are full of mobs. And you can just easily reposition the fight to, if they decide to chase you, or if they run to mobs, that's even better, because then with the Andariel build you can just shoot at the mobs and guarantee proc the Andariel poison nova. All it takes is to proc the poison nova close to the enemy, like the player, because if you proc the Poison Nova on a mob that is close to them, they cannot dodge the Poison Nova itself, because the Poison Nova is considered damage over time, and you cannot dodge damage over time. So you can have easier time killing dodge based characters with the Andariel version than with this version, because with this version you have to hit them directly. There's no way around it. The victimized explosion is not considered damage over time, so even if you hit mobs that are next to the player, the victimized explosion won't hit them because it's not damage over time, it's just pure damage. So that's the downside of this build. But apart from the dodge based character, this build does way more damage, and anything that is not dodge based, you will kill them way easier with the Andariel version than with the Andariel version. So another thing is that the Heartseeker, both the Andariel and the non-Andariel version, especially this version, the non-Andariel one, is better for if you play against firewall sorks. Now, you're still not gonna win probably most of the time, or at least half of the time, something like that. You can win though. The point how you do this is that, for example, if they're, let's say that this dummy is the firewall sork, you go here off screen and then you shoot, and as you can see, I'm still able to hit them because the inner sight just filled. Okay, see, I'm still being able to hit them off screen, but they cannot see me. They have to assume where I am. So if I just move constantly and shoot off screen, I'm also not seeing them. But the thing is that maybe they are around mobs, maybe you can bring them around mobs. And even if you shoot blindly, it's Heartseeker, right? It's seeking targets. So the seeking part doesn't usually work against players that well, but it works against mobs all the time. So all it takes is for them to be close to mobs, and you can actually kill them either with the Poison Nova from Andariel or the victimized explosion. You can easily kill them. The sorks, and the sorks are extremely squishy, like extremely squishy. So as long as they don't see you, you can just shoot off screen and avoid the firewalls. And that's really the only way and the best way how you can beat firewalls with a rogue. You're not gonna kill them with melee rogue, that's for sure, and you're not gonna kill them with, maybe you can with rapid fire, but it's way more difficult with rapid fire because, you know, again, the tracking component of this and the fact that you can spam it, right? You don't have to generate combo points and then shoot the rapid fire and things like that, makes it much more easier to kill enemies, whatever enemies, like that are not dodge based, and especially firewall sorks. Although again, I would say that if you're just focusing on the damage and you're not playing against firewall sorks, rapid fire is stronger than Heartseeker. Both the Andariel version and this version, rapid fire is still stronger. So let's just go through the skills. There are no changes to the Andariel version. There are just a few changes. So again, we take the Heartseeker as usual, then Sturdy, you take the Shadow Step and the Dash. There's no change here. Weapon Mastery, maxing Weapon Mastery, and then this is one of the changes. So you max trick attacks. Of course, we also take these 3 as usual, these 2 as usual, like the Rect and the Reactive Defense. One of the changes is that you take trick attacks. Now, what this does is dazing or stunning an enemy increases your crit strike chance and crit strike damage by 6% multiplicative for 5 seconds up to 36%. And this is 36% multiplicative crit strike damage. So if we take a look now, how much crit damage I have 977 crit damage. So and I have concussive strikes on my boots, right? But now with this build we have 100% lucky hit chance. So we remove the RNG. Can we trigger a lucky hit? Every hit will be lucky hit. The only RNG is 20%, which means that every 4th to 5th attack should taste the enemy on average, right? But there is no RNG on top of RNG. Previously, if you have less than 100%, it would be RNG to hit lucky hit and then RNG to proc this 20%. Now it's just RNG for this 20%. So now let's see if I start shooting here. 1, 2, 3, and it was dazed. Okay, so it took 3 shots. Now 1, 2, 3, again dazed from the third, then dazed from the first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, this time it was 7. But you see, it's quite RNG, but it's quite reliable, right? So if you just start shooting, you can see dazed. Then let's take a look. 1400 crit damage, right? Just because we have the daze, and not only that, but we have chance to stun on the gloves, and you should temper probably. Ideally, take chance to stun on the pants as well, right? Not barrier generation. Don't take barrier generation. So, if you temper chance to stun on the gloves, and here you as well want chance to stun. Basically, everywhere on these pieces you want chance to stun. You don't need different crowd control specifically for this build because you're not playing damage over time and you are not playing creeping death. So the only thing that you want is chance to stun. So if you temper chance to stun everyone on your gear, that would be extremely good. And then use concussive strike. That's almost guaranteed that every second hit would be, will be either daze or stun, and it will increase your crit strike damage significantly. Now, for the should you stack vulnerable or crit damage? Like, for example, here I have 1500 vulnerable damage. Before, like, I don't need to stack attacks or anything. I just have it like that, just a raw 1500 vulnerable damage and almost 1000 crit damage. The way to achieve this is that you don't take crit damage anywhere on your gear. Okay, so everywhere on your gear where you can, basically it's not that many places. You can take vulnerable only here on the gloves, vulnerable 2 affixes of vulnerable here on the bow, and you can take 2 affixes vulnerable here on the ring, and you can temper, and you should temper vulnerable instead of movement speed here on the amulet as well, because you have movement speed from the helmet, movement speed from Andariel, and then you have movement speed from the boots. So and by the way, you might not even need the movement speed here, for example on the boots, because you should prioritize either greater affix dexterity or greater affix dodge chance. Then the best way how to check this, if you need the movement speed or not, is to get like boots that have greater affix dexterity or greater affix dodge chance, and then the second affix should be whatever. I mean the third affix should be whatever really. Then you temper movement speed, okay, and don't change the third affix. If it's whatever the third affix is, just don't change it yet. Temper movement speed and chance to stun, then you masterwork them fully, put them on, and see if you have 200% movement speed or at least 190. If you have 190% movement speed, that's fine. And then what you can do is change the third affix with HP. If you have less than 190, then change it with movement speed. And that's how you solve it, really. So that's the way to go. Just take vulnerable damage everywhere that you can. The crit damage comes only from one glyph and the paragons, like the nodes that give you crit damage, right? Whatever we took here, but the main crit damage comes from the combat glyph. Okay, this almost gives you 500% crit damage, and then multiplicatively increases your crit damage by 14.2%. So for the glyphs, basically the board is exactly the same, because I'm not gonna go through details, but believe me, these are the best boards for range strokes, in my personal opinion, because they give you everything useful for the rapid fire build and for the Heartseeker build, both Andariel and this version. So take a look here. This is the only this and like this one, the Cunning Stratagem and the Cheap Shot are the two that are absolutely useful for the rapid fire. And maybe this, you can take this for the rapid fire, which is okay, but it's not something crazy. And on any other board there is nothing useful for the rapid fire that you can take, and there is nothing useful for the Heartseeker as well. And two of the glyphs for all these three builds don't change, and these are the exploit and the control glyph. They are shared between all these three builds. And this one where we put the Kenny before, now here we just put combat. Both combat and Kenny require you intelligence. This board gives you, after dexterity, the second highest stat on this board is intelligence, so you just either switch the Kenny here or the combat. And then here the highest stat on this board is dexterity, and the second highest is strength. So here you either put the frost feeder or other dex based glyphs that you need, or bane for the poison damage. And this one is quite flexible, the starter one, so but it gives you most dexterity. So here we put the ranger, which is dex based one. Now you can say, why don't you use chip here, right? Which increases your physical damage. And as you can see, the description of the Heartseeker on the bottom says physical damage, right? Yes, but now I haven't tested this, I'm not sure, but we are playing, your basic skills are always caught in build. So they shouldn't be considered physical damage. If they're caught in build, they should be elemental damage. So that's one thing. In order to be on the safe side, because I haven't tested this, the ranger increases your marksman damage. Chip might increase your damage. It might increase the damage of your Heartseeker, but I'm not sure if it will actually work, besides just showing you the number increases. But I for fact know that the ranger glyph does increase your damage for sure. So better be on the safe side and use the ranger glyph. And besides, it gives you 10% damage reduction just by holding bow. Then exploit as well, again on the Cunning Stratagem board. Then here on the Cheap Shot board we place the Frost Feeder. Then on the exploit weakness you want to take this. Again, this is kind of shit, but it's really the only useful legendary node. Like this one and these ones are the only useful legendary nodes that you can use for the Heartseeker builds. Then finally, again, we take the control glyph here on the Leriana's Instinct. And that's it. Just let me go back to the skills. So after trick attacks, then we take the 4 points in concealment. That's just because we want to you want to bring the cooldown of the concealment as much as you can, and you don't need these things here. For example, non-physical damage you deal has 5% increased lucky hit chance. You have 100% lucky hit chance. You don't need this. So you can just remove points from here that you don't need and actually put them in things that are more useful. In this case is the exploit and malice. Then we take just 1 point in smoke grenade, enhanced smoke grenade, and subverting smoke grenade. Then 1 point in dark shroud, enhanced dark shroud, and subverting dark shroud. We max out the agile, mending obscurity, and evasive. And the important thing here is that you want to place the smoke grenade on a button that is very comfortable for you. Like ideally the button that you cast your core skills with. Because what it does is that not only that applies poison and is especially useful for the Andariel version, but the most important thing is that it dazes the enemies, guaranteed. It's not like a hit. You throw it and they're dazed for 4 seconds. Which means that when they engage you, especially the Spiritborns, they will be close to you, like they have to be in close combat. You can just throw it like in you, basically, and daze them. And while they're dazed, they cannot use skills. This significantly increases your survivability. And if you are playing against Sorks, it's also very useful because you're preventing them from using Flame Shield, Ice Armor, Teleport. So you want to be able to cast it very comfortably, very fast. It's a button that you use quite frequent, you know, that you don't even think about it, right? So then we take Frigid Finesse again because enemies will be chilled or frozen, and we take Cold Imbuement because the skills are cold imbued and we are not maximizing the poison damage, we are maximizing just the damage of the Heartseeker itself. So we don't have the cold imbuement on the skill bar, and we don't honestly need any of these things. We only need this one, right? The mixed cold imbuement, which gives you 20% multiplicative damage to crowd controlled enemies, and you get 40% against frozen enemies. And because our basic attacks are cold imbued all the time, it makes sense to take this. Then 3 points in haste, 3 points in innervation, and 3 points in adrenaline rush, and finally you take victimize. That's it for the skills. We went through the paragons and the gear, and I think that sums it up. Yes, this time I'm not gonna forget the mercenaries. Okay, so for the mercenaries I'm using here, and you should use him as main mercenary. I would say in all your rogue builds and spiritborn builds, because this guy actually fortifies you significantly. As you can see, I'm already fortified for all my life, and I haven't dodged anything because them cannot attack me. This entire fortify is from this guy. So this is, if not the most useful one, it's one of the most useful mercenaries, especially for rogues and spiritborns. Then for the skills, you want to take shield charge, here's guard, then provoke, and finally mocking claw. For the reinforcement mercenary, you can use really whatever you want. I'm using this, the Outkin. Maybe I'm butchering the name, but it's, you know, this kit. And the skill that I'm using is Chain of Souls, and I've placed it on when I throw smoke grenade. But you can adjust this. You can use whichever reinforcement mercenary or reinforcement skill you want, and you know, adjust it however you want. I don't think that the reinforcement is that much more important. This guy is the most important. So for the PvE aspect, this build can do the PvE actually quite nicely in Torment 4. You are not doing, I've tested it in Pit 65 and I think I did it in like 4 minutes with this build. But what you have to do for the PvE aspect is on the amulet, you can see you should put Edge Master, this one, and then on the pants you put Shared Misery.
That's a good
And
omen.
that's it. That's the only change. But let me check if I have some boss mats here. Yeah, I have a few. I have a shit ton of boss mats in my Sork. Yeah, maybe we can try it on the Beast of Ice or Beast in Ice, whatever it is. Yeah. What I was about to say is that you're not gonna be able to do it in T4, but if you switch to T3, yeah, I mean you can clear T3 like it's nothing, so it shouldn't be, the Beast in Ice shouldn't be a problem, I think. I think it's doing okay. The difference between T3 and T4 is enormous. I mean, you could say, yeah, but you know, you're killing it quite fast in T3. No, believe me, the difference between T3 and T4 is just enormous, like really enormous. You know what? We can actually do it on T4 just to show you that it will do completely nothing on T4. Okay, as you can see, this is the damage that we are doing on T4, and as I told you, I mean you can still kill him, yes, but does it seem efficient to you? No, he just, no. And yes, as you can see, it's quite challenging to kill it solo. So no, T4 bosses, just I would say forget about with this build, but there is a Helltide, and I can show you that you can do pretty much anything else besides maybe the Infernal Horde. You can still do the Infernal Horde, just not as efficient as the Spiritborn, so you will struggle significantly more, and you're not gonna gather either as much either as Spiritborns with this build. But you can do the hordes, and you can do pretty much anything else. So you can see there's no issues whatsoever in the Helltides. Everything dies quite fast. You can do something like up to 60 million damage with this build. At least I think that's the highest numbers I've seen. But yeah, as you can see, it's no problem doing Hellkites and any other content than tormented bosses. And the last thing before I finish this video is to mention that when you do this, like when you optimize it for PvE by tempering the Edge Master and the Shared Misery, you're losing the dodge chance. So if you take a look at my dodge chance now, it's 64%, yes, but otherwise it would be something like 75, which is significant. Like 10% is not nothing. So you should be way more careful, and you will be dying in the higher pits way easier. So the explosions, these random explosions, you know that, for example, you're dashing and there is these shits that explode, and you're dashing and it explodes right when you dash, it will just blow you most of the times, right? You're not gonna dodge it most probably. So you should be way more careful when you optimize it for PvE. So that's all. I wish you reigns of mythics and non-existent ancestrals in Diablo. I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.